Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig Garber. You know me as host of the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, but when I'm not interviewing world-class guitar players, I'm busy helping clients with their marketing. In fact, since March of 2000, I've helped over 300 clients in 108 different industries all over the world sell everything from $20 books to $5,000 seminar seats and everything in between. I even authored a book about my experience called How to Make Maximum Money with Minimum Customers. Now, if you own or operate a business, ask yourself the following marketing-related questions and be honest with your answers. Are you generating fresh new qualified leads on a daily basis? Is your website generating enough sales? And if not, do you know why? Is your advertising effective? Is it predictably and reliably making you several multiples of what you're spending on it? And lastly, are you consistently communicating with your email list? Or do you have an email list of prospects and customers, but you have no idea what to say to them, how often to say it, or how to make money with this list? If you need solutions for these marketing problems, then you need to book a one-on-one marketing strategy session with me. After this strategy session, you'll know how to speak to and make money with your email list, how to use your website to attract customers and clients who are ready to buy from you now, and how to sell your goods and services for top dollar and at much higher profit margins than your competition. Listen, stop hoping things will get better on their own. Hope is not a very good business strategy. Instead, book a marketing strategy session with me by going to everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing and find out if your business meets the 5 criteria you need to qualify for this service. Again, that's everyonelovesguitar.com/marketing. Thanks for listening. Now let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and we are here today with arguably one of the greatest bass players ever pick up the instrument. I have the pleasure to talk with Stu Hamm. He began playing bass in 1973 while at high school, and he initially taught himself from the old Mel Bay books. Before long, he was working in the school jazz band and studying the recordings of bass legends such as Stanley Clarke, Chris Squire, Jeff Berlin, and Jaco Pastorius. In 78, he enrolled at Berklee, where he began studying alongside Steve Vai, and it was during that time he began experimenting with ways to play classical piano music on the bass. In the late 80s, Stu approached Relativity Records with some demos of his music, and he was offered a small record deal, leading to the release of his debut album, Radio Free Albemuth, in 1988. The main melody lines of one of the songs was supposed to be played on a trumpet, but the limited recording budget made this impossible. Instead, the label suggested he used one of their newly signed artists, this guy named Joe Satriani. Joe played on the track, and in return for Stu playing on his album, Flying in a Blue Dream, Stu was then subsequently offered the bass player position in Joe's band, and he toured in support of that amazing album. In 1988, Stu formed GHS, a jazz fusion trio with guitarist Frank Gambale and drummer Steve Smith. They released their first album, Show Me What You Can Do. In 2006, Stu put together BX3, a touring bass show that also featured fellow bassist Billy Sheehan and Jeff Berlin. With backing musicians Jude Gold on guitar and John Mader on drums, the BX3 show was a chance for fans to see 3 bassists in one gig. Stu's currently promoting a new solo bass CD and tour on Indiegogo, and we'll talk about this a little later today. Hey man, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy guy. I really appreciate it.
Hey man, what's going on, Craig? How's the weather down there in beautiful Tampa?
Man, it was good right now. It was in the 30s this week, but it's weird here. Now it's 80.
Well, there you go.
Go figure. I'll take 80 over 30 any day, though.
Hey, man, you did your homework. That was good and really close. That was good. That was excellent. The only slight mistake was that, when I did get Joe to play, it was the trumpet player I was trying to get was Mark Isham, who went on to become a very famous film composer. And the drummer on the record, Mike Barsamano, had been working with Isham. And the way it all went down was Mike Isham heard the melody to Flow My Tears and liked it and wanted to play on it, but he wanted to record it at his home studio and wanted $50 to pay his engineer. And I didn't have it. And I don't mean, I like the way you worded it, limited budget. I mean, it's not like I didn't have $50 in my recording budget to allocate for a secondary recording engineer. I just didn't have, I couldn't come up with $50. I was broke. So then the guys at Relativity, Cliff Coltrari, the guy that signed Steve and Joe and me and sort of started that whole thing, he's the one that suggested Joe to me. And so I flew up to San Francisco when they were still in Hyde Street Studios doing surfing, and the idea was that I was going to put a fretless bass part on "Always with Me, Always with You," and that was the day where I think they had just ready the tape bins, and there was tape, 2-inch tape taped to the wall and everything. And then the day got away from us, and he played on like 3 tracks on the record, and we just didn't have time for me to put the bass track on "Always with Me." But that was when we was recording "Surfing Not Flying in the Blue Dream."
Was that the first time you guys had met?
That was the first time we had met. Yeah.
Had you guys heard of each other, like just from the music scene?
I don't know. I'm gonna say no, because I met I met Steve when we were 18-year-old freshmen at Berklee College of Music, and we stayed in touch. I played on his demos for Zappa, and we had the band Morning Thunder and everything. And then I was actually living in Germany at the time in 1981, and Steve got me a audition for Zappa. So I flew back to Boston. And then learned Mo and Herb's Vacation, and I used to cut the grass and the Black Page, and flew out to L.A. and stayed at Steve's place on Fairfax, and recorded with Zappa for a couple of days. And he liked it, and we took Sunday off, and he said, "Do you want to stick around and record next week?" And bad career move number 5,000 on Stu Hamm's part. I was sadly not like the biggest Zappa fan in the world, right? Mm. And also the next Monday, I had tickets to see Miles Davis at Kix Disco with Mike Stern and Al Foster and Marcus Miller, and I had been playing in Berkeley in the Michael Gibbs Big Band, so I got in to go to the show with Michael Gibbs, and Cicely Tyson was on the front row, and it was like the second gig Miles had done in years and years and years, and plus I hadn't seen my girlfriend in a long time, so I turned down further recording with Zappa gig that probably would have led me to getting the gig to fly back to Boston to see Miles.
Wow.
But what can I say? And then and it's funny you mentioned the B3 band. I saw both John Mayer and Jude Gold yesterday. So it's a small
that's
world.
Funny. Yeah. So whatever happened with the girlfriend? Did that ever work out? Was it worth it?
Man, that's so funny, dude. That is just so creepy. I'm not going to name names, but she died about 40 years ago, and and now you just reminded me I had a dream about her last night. So that's really kind of creepy.
Wow, yeah, that is. I'm really sorry. That's horrible, man.
Well, it's going around. That thing, it's going around. So
Wow, that's wild. But if you have to meet an unknown guitarist, it's on an optimistic note. If you have to meet an unknown guitarist.
It was great. And like I said, you never know. You just never know how it's going to turn out. And then it's so funny because those first gigs, Jonathan and Joe and I reunited for the G4 camp up in Monterey last year, and those first shows we did, which were like Ibanez shows for the Summer NAMM show in Chicago, and we never really rehearsed. He just sort of sent us the songs, and we sort of got on stage and went up and played them, and it was really it was crazy,
Have you had magic like that with other people?
Well, sure. Yeah. Man, I mean, my whole, I try to create that every time I play. I mean, maybe you're already getting into this deep musical discussion, but I live in so many different musical worlds. I mean, sure, I love rock music, but my father was a very well-known musicologist, was president of the American Musicology Association, and one of his poker playing buddies was John Cage, right? So I grew up around a lot of really atonal, 12-tone row, experimental, 20th century modern classical music, and my mother was an opera singer, and my oldest brother was a guitar player who since moved to India, that was always listening to Sun Ra and On the Corner and Bitches Brew and just really, weird shit. So I was exposed to lots of different kinds of music and jazz and stuff. So, not a lot of people know that, like I say, I play upright, that I swing, that I read my ass off, And so it's a strange world you get categorized into where, there's a couple different jams here in L.A. and there's sort of the whiskey metalhead dudes and they think that I'm some sort of virtuoso jazz dude. And then you go to like the heavy duty jazz jams and those guys think I'm a sellout because I've had a few pop gigs, and I'm just a bass player, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Excuse me for being overqualified. I remember in San Francisco I did I know, I always thought it was a good thing, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think anybody that is familiar with your playing would think that you're like would pigeonhole you. I mean, clearly, if you could play, the easiest complex thing you play qualifies you to play pretty much anything.
Well, I mean, it's all different, though. People get a perception that, like I said, man, I am of the generation where I still grew up playing bass, and I love it. That's what it's all about. I grew up playing a walking bass line, the fundamentals. It sort of happened in my lifetime, and I helped promote it for better or worse with the revolution of Jocko and Stanley and bass as a lead instrument. And man, I don't know if I invented tapping, but I sure got there first, or as soon as anyone else.
Well, I think you popularized it for the bass more than anybody else, for sure.
So I was living in San Francisco, and I got the chance to do this show called Teatro Zinzani that was a sort of a Cirque du Soleil dinner theater, and it was great. I wrote music for it, and I did the audition, and the guy, Norman Durkee, said it was the best audition he'd ever seen. I read treble clef, and I read pretty well, and can sing and play the pick. But if he had known, or someone had told him that, hey, that's Stu Hamm, the guy that plays Moonlight Sonata on the bass, I never would have gotten in the door for an audition for show, right? You know what I'm saying?
So you get very pigeonholed in
I think everyone does, yeah. And then you're here in LA where it's really a lot of the gigs are just central casting. I mean, but I don't know, it's a strange thing. I'm certainly not a jazz snob where, dude, there's people that can play pop music great, and there's people who play it condescendingly, right? And there's an art. And you listen to something like Lee Sklar, right? He doesn't have to impress by playing a million friggin' notes or tap or slap or play harmonics or any of that. He just knows how to play bass and make a song sound good. Yeah. That's as difficult and worthwhile an art as all the chops anyone in the world has.
It's interesting that happens, I guess, in the bass world. I never would have thought that for some reason. I don't know why, but I guess I don't know why I wouldn't have thought that, but I guess it happens with everybody, depending on whatever you're doing. Kind of weird. What attracted you to bass over guitar in the first place?
Oh, man, don't get me started on guitar, man. We want to keep this a nice, positive, friendly, cross-instrument thing, right? So don't get me started on that. But, no, you talk about, I mean, bass players are either your personality draws you to the instrument or vice versa, but, still in its essence, the bass is the fundamental thing that holds it all together. And it's the dudes that are sort of happy to sit back there and subliminally know they're holding everything together, right? I don't need to freaking put my foot up on a monitor and solo for 20 minutes, and that's just not what it's all about in my thing. But so when we get these like bass days and more with bass camps, bass players, there's very little, ego or competition, with a very few exceptions of people, right? But I've been to those guitar camps, and that's just all about, check me out. I can play faster and louder than you and licks, So it's a different dynamic,
But let me ask you this, because this is an interesting thing. Don't you think to some extent, in order to be like top rock star, and I don't mean rock star in rock music only, but a rock star level in any profession or in any business, don't you think you've got to be very, very ego driven? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean,
no, absolutely, man. There's times where ego's the only thing going. I think Winston Churchill's quote said was that success is approaching your next failure with the same enthusiasm you did your last failure.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So absolutely, for sure, you got to have belief. You got to be an ego, and absolutely.
But I mean, I've seen, and I'm coming from the business side, even to be a rock star, quote, like a guru, I've found that it has to be important to you to be liked, sort of. And again, I'm not in any way like besmirching anybody who's like that. But there's a certain personality you need to have that, where you're driven by, putting deep shit on Facebook and making it look like you got your shit together and, that kind of stuff. And I think it's like that in every profession, it seems like.
Well, I remember my daughter's 18 years old now, but when she was like in second grade, she was playing violin, and she was going to play for her talent show, and she played, and I asked her, I said, how'd it go, Charlotte? And she said, well, I was a little nervous at first, but after I played, everyone clapped, and it made me feel good. And I was like, duh. What
Hello.
the hell do you think we're doing it for, right?
Yeah. Sure. Man, was that? I have my daughter's almost 18. I feel like I'm on the 10-yard line. That has been the toughest thing. I've raised 3 kids. That's been so tough. You know.
Off the record, I'm not. We're not going there. But yeah, I can't imagine how the social pressures with all the new drugs available and with the social media and it's just awful, man. You just pray and.
Oh, I know. You need some alcohol to talk about that. Talk about maybe a cool or interesting story about working with some of these guys, and if you got anything from it, either a takeaway or something you learned that you're able to apply moving forward. Satriani. Let's talk about him, of course.
Well, I mean, it was so interesting. Like I said, it was just so thrown together. I think. The story, if I'm correct, was that Joe met Jonathan Mover sort of like in line at the Hoshino factory when they were Hoshino's the parent company to Ibanez and Tama, right? And it was just sort of like, hey, I'm doing a gig at a Ibanez party. You want to play? Sure. I've heard your references. And
wow.
So he sent us the tapes and we played. And like I said, we really didn't rehearse or Joe didn't tell us play this, play that. We just sort of came up with stuff. And, it was improvisational and it was exciting and it was all fresh. And then just the excitement of seeing it going from, playing small little clubs unknown. And then he gets the Jagger gig and he gets on CNN and Time Magazine and, it just took off, and that whole phrase of the surfing tour and the Flying in a Blue Dream tour was it was great, and then it certainly evolved into a more, Joe's wanting a more rock gig. Where kind of harkening back to a point I was trying to get to about Magic was that, I love both. I love Steve's originality. It's incredible, and I love Joe's songwriting and his tone. I love both their tones and how original they are. When they play live, they play the same solos that are on the records, note for note, right? Every song, because people when they go hear "Surfing with the Alien," that solo is part of the song.
Yeah.
That's sort of where I'm at, and maybe here's the difference between jazz and rock musicians is that, tomorrow night I'm playing with Tony McAlpine and Gergo Borlai, and we're playing these tunes that I've played a million times, but I've set them up where I'm hoping they're going to be a little different every time, because for me, that's where the fun is.
Sure.
That's where I'm trying to recreate the magic. So it's a different aesthetic playing with those guys. It's the great fun energy of rock, and the bass parts are very defined, playing with Steve or Joe as far as what he wants to do. Except back in the day, both those guys play bass, and in their music, most of the time the bass is its role in that music is sort of doubling the rhythm guitar by pumping out 8th notes or 16th notes, right? Mm-hmm. And you think about it, the only time on those early records they called me was because, believe it or not, I was one of the handful of guys in the world that slapped on the bass. Can you believe that?
No, that's
it is amazing, right? And so it's like in a Blue Dream and Flying in the Blue Dream, that's all Joe on bass except for Bells of Lal and maybe Strange, where I'm slapping.
Wow,
right?
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, and because it really is amazing that I'm the other member of the band I'm playing with tomorrow is this young 21-year-old female Indian bass player named Mohini Day.
Sure, I've heard of her. Yeah.
And she's played with Steve and stuff, and she's just amazing, man. The chops are just incredible, but it's so funny. When I was 16, no one played bass like that. It didn't exist. No one tapped on the bass. Just 2 people slapped. I remember seeing Larry Graham, and I said, "What the hell is that?" And I went to a music store in Nashua, New Hampshire, and took a bass off the wall and plucked the string, and the guy had to kick out of the store for trying to break his bass. Right? And then I saw Jeff Berlin playing chords, and I heard Percy Jones playing harmonics, and then I saw Jocko do a unaccompanied solo, and bam, the whole thing changed. And now when you see a girl like Mohini, where by the time she was 10, she could tap, she could slap, she could play harmonics, she could play chords. Nobody, no one did that a generation ago. And now, if you're a bass player, you're sort of expected to master all this technique that again, didn't exist, and that I helped, bring to the mass public. It's just amazing how it's evolved that way.
There's one thing that it's a really cute clip of you playing the Charlie Brown thing.
Right.
Man, that is amazing. I love that. I mean, of all the stuff, I love a lot of the stuff you've done, but that is such a cool freaking video.
Well, that was a jumping off point. It was like, as you said, it literally came from, I think, when I tell the story, I was playing with Steve, and it's when Van Halen and Eruption was popular, and I certainly didn't invent tapping, because people were doing pull-offs, and you'd look at Eruption or whatever, and there's bends and taps. And then it sort of came to me, okay, well, instead of taking two hands to play one note, one hand to fret the note and the other to pull it, if you just tap down on it, your other hand is free to do something else. And that's when I started sort of like with the left hand laying down a root 5 and then playing little melodies on top of it. I did see Victor Bailey sort of start doing stuff like that when we were on the same floor at Berkeley, and then again, it was one of those ideas. I loved the Charles Schultz and the Comic Collector and Peanuts, and I love that Vince Guaraldi song. And I just said, man, if I could ever figure that out, that'd be so cool. And it's contrapuntal, and I think my piano playing helped. And when I did it, it was it's great because you realize that you didn't achieve anything. It's just the tip of the iceberg for all this other stuff to work on. But it was a good. Man, some of my favorite musicians are like the Marx Brothers, right? They're really talented, but they're funny.
Yeah.
And I think as an entertainer, if you let the crowd in and say funny and, break down the wall and we're all trying to have a good time here, it worked really well. And I think it also benefited in those early Joe Satriani shows because, Joe's an incredible player. I had a chance to sit in the crowd and see him last year when we were both in I was in Buenos Aires playing with this other band, and he was playing. But most of the night it's like the same instrumentation, right? The guitar plays an intro, plays the melody, plays a solo, plays a melody, plays a little tag at the end. And in those shows, I think for the crowd, the only time something really sonically different happened was the drum solo and the bass solo. So I think part of the reason why people said, "Oh man, that was such a great part of the show," was because it just gives your ear something different, Let
me ask you this: You just mentioned something that I think a lot of people take for granted that aren't professionals at your level. The entertainment component. You said if you're an entertainer, it's great to let the crowd in. How did you learn that? Like at what, that's not something when you first become a musician. I don't think it is. Maybe your parents taught you. I don't know. But where did you learn that?
Well, like I said, I'm the youngest, and I was always from a very early age. I've got a picture of me playing drums when I was before kindergarten. My brother was in second grade for a little talent show. And I had a great singing voice, and I was in the University of Illinois Boys Choir. Every time the U of I would do a musical, I would get the lead, like Young Patrick and Mame and what's his name and the Music Man, and I was on the stage and I was singing, and I guess I was always just sort of a pretty extroverted kind of dude,
So you
watched a lot of Marx Brothers movies, So.
Well, I thought you were from New Orleans. You said you were.
I was born in New Orleans, and then when I was 3, we moved to Illinois. My dad was at the University of Illinois in Champaign.
Gotcha.
So and when I was 15, we moved to Vermont when he was teaching at Dartmouth College.
Wow, that's a hell of a pedigree.
Yeah.
Dartmouth. Wow. Yeah. Talk about your experience with Ronnie James Dio. I didn't know you played with him until I, did this little him and Schenker. I didn't realize that.
Well, those are good rumors. Let me see. Let's look. The other rumors I like were I keep getting these.
Oh, so that's a rumor. It's not true.
Well, no, kinda. We can sort of spin it where it's true. The other one was Cozy Powell. There's this rumor that I played with Cozy Powell. There's a rumor that I had the calluses from my toes taken off and put on my fingers.
That's not true.
I'm trying to perpetuate that. A good rumor.
What you need to do is perpetuate that as a procedure that you could oversee, and for a fee, you will give them the information product.
Friggin' absolutely.
The DVD, man.
Absolutely. Schenker, I did record. Schenker was on we did like a German G3 with Uli John Roth and Michael Schenker.
Oh, wow.
And I did play on the record Arachnophobia. And I'm wondering how to spin this story. I will say that that was cool because that was the first time I met Jeremy Colson because he played drums on it. And it came out great. That's pretty cool. But it's not like, Michael and I, bonded and, rented a house and buddies. It was a gig. That one, I'll tell you. But I've seen it from time to time. And the Ronnie James Dio thing is, I've done a lot of those like tribute records, and with various degree of good. I'm on a couple Rush tribute records, right? The Working Man and stuff like that. And but the one that is really, 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 really amazingly good is the version of Dream On we did, and it's me on bass, Vinnie Colaiuta on drums.
Wow.
Ronnie James Dio singing, and Yngwie on guitar.
Holy shit! What a lineup! Huh?
No,
I haven't, but I just wrote it down because
it's on YouTube without anyone getting paid. Don't get me started on that one.
Really? That's so weird.
Yeah, I know, right? What's BMI and ASCAP doing with all their money except shutting down those people? They do it in Germany. Gamma. They block all that shit.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do. Don't get me started.
But you mean people aren't entitled? People aren't entitled to hear that?
What's that?
You mean people aren't entitled to hear that for free?
Come on, man. It's just insane. I mean, in 5-10 years, how is anyone who creates a piece of art or music or text going to be able to make any royalties? You know how I get paid? I get paid for dudes that come to my show and buy a CD for $15. Right. Man, let's make this a positive interview.
I know, dude. You're preaching.
But let's also realistic about what's going on and how impossibly hard it is for artists to maintain or make any royalties from their art. But and the other great thing about this Dream On thing is that Yngwie's what he is. He's just a force of nature, But it sounds so musical because I'm sure what he did was he just played over the whole thing. But whoever mixed it sort of turned him down every 8 bars, so it sounds like he's actually listening, interacting with the band, and it's such a concept.
Oh my god!
It really is good, and it's really all. It's just you got to hear it, man.
Holy shit!
It's on a collection called Bass Heroes. I think it was one of those Kulik records. It wasn't Shrapnel. I think it was one of those things. But Ronnie, I never had a chance to meet. So
look, Stu, if we're going to get anywhere moving forward, you have to not hold back as much as you're doing. I need you to feel more comfortable to let.
Now, oh no! What if they get mad at me now? Oh no!
To let loose. Be yourself. Holy shit! I can't even stop laughing. Let's talk about your Indiegogo project.
Okay.
Because that's a really cool thing, and it's pretty extensive, and so let's talk about what you got going on there.
Well, I got dude. It's either going to be the best thing I did or absolute career suicide.
Why? Why?
It's a really different record, man. It's a solo based record, and I listened to, maybe partially because of what I was exposed growing up to. I listened to a lot of classical music, and I listened to a lot of piano music. And there's been a great wave in a movement called postmodernist minimalism, right? Which was sort of the thing was people writing 12-tone row, and then people like Steve Reich, to some aspect, I guess Philip Glass, if you consider Philip Glass a legitimate composer, and the Estonian composer Arvo Pärt came out with this really just as a reaction to all the atonal music that came out in the 20th century, very tonic, beautiful, soothing music that sort of explores how music can affect you psychologically and physically by enduring a longer period of time, right? How's that?
Hold on a minute. It's a study that shows the longer you're listening to music in a clip or over time, like in one straight.
Over time, it's sort of music. For me personally, since it's music that takes a longer time to develop, it has a very relaxing and calming effect on you. And I'm all into having things that have relaxing and calming effects on me that aren't illegal.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Once I hit 50, I was like, I realized that, like, I'm responsible for X amount of stress in my life, so I'm officially done.
Sure.
Seriously.
Yeah, I mean, meditation, breathing, I do all these, really heavy breathing tapes in the morning and at night and meditation, and it's just, lifesaver. So Deutsche Grammophon has been doing all these really interesting things about new ways to imagine recording and presenting classical piano music. There's an Icelandic producer named Olafur Arnalds that's making some really beautiful music. And so, dude, check us out. I just bought this record. The last record I bought was by a composer named Max Richter, and it's called Sleep. And it's 8 hours of music that is meant to be put on while you sleep to affect your mood subliminally during the evening.
What's it called? Max Richter?
Right, Richter. And the record's called Sleep, and it's 8 hours long. And it's just so slow and to develop and beautiful and calming and relaxing, and my blood pressure goes down like 20 points when I put it on.
Have you played it through the night, like next to you?
Absolutely, yeah. It's kind of cool to get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, and the same theme is sort of going on. Absolutely.
Wow,
it's wonderful.
Check that out.
It's beautiful and relaxing. So this record, I mean, it operates on a lot of different levels, man. I mean, at one point, it really is art for me, because every song that I write is a story. It's about something, about a book I read, or a trip I took, or a person I read, or met, or a meal I had, or a bad flight, or something. But no one ever asked me like why I called the song Goodbye. They say, what kind of strings did you use? And when you use that open G, isn't it a little flat when you did the hammer onto the...
Yeah, you know what?
So this record operates on a bunch of different levels. Number one, it's just meant to be a record of me playing bass that you could put on that's nice and beautiful in the background and makes you feel good. A record that really influenced me a lot on this was a record called One Quiet Night by Pat Metheny. Have you heard it? It's an acoustic guitar record. Beautiful. And it's him playing guitar, and there's fret squeaks, and there's fret buzzes, and you can hear his hand moving, the sound of his hand moving across the strings, and, it's real. It's just someone playing guitar, and it's beautiful. You can listen to it intently. You can have it on in the background, and it's nice and calming and good guitar music. And also, so I read a lot, and I have literary aspirations. So here's the story, was that I was in a hotel in Italy, and I finished a book I was reading, and I put it in the library that they had in the lobby. And I found this book that was called The Diary of Patrick Xavier. And it turns out it was a diary that was written by this American traveler. And I sort of had some shit go on in my life in 2015 that blew up my whole life. So I took a couple years and just took every gig and became like the Flying Dutchman of bass players, right? Just traveled, turned a weekend bass clinic into stand with friends for 2 weeks and just traveled the world trying to figure out.
It was like therapy to help you deal with whatever you had going on, or
apparently. So when I'm reading this guy's diary, it was different. What he went through was different, but he was sort of on the same sort of quest, right? And we'd actually been to a lot of the same places in our travels. So I had this idea to compare what he'd written in his diary to my experiences that I'd had in these same places that we'd both been, and to write music about it that reflects what's going on, right? So some of it's pretty experimental, some of it's really beautiful, some of it's a little humorous, and it's just me playing bass, and I'm super duper happy with it. And with the Indiegogo campaign, it's amazing because, as you can tell, you can imagine it's not the easiest artistic sell to ask Sony to give me, or Favor Nations to give me $50,000 to, do this solo bass record about a diary I found, where every song includes a short story where I explain what it's about and a photograph that I took, right?
So you're going to, does that explanation come on the recording, or is that like in text?
In text. And so what the Indiegogo campaign did, it's great because you can pre-order CDs, you can, order signed CDs, you can produce the record, which means you get your name in the credits. You can take Skype lessons from me. When I do this tour, you can buy VIP packages. You can be my roadie for a day. You can be my bass tech for a day, hang out with me. You can hire me to play on your record. You can buy picks. all that kind of stuff. But I raised enough money in front of it where I could hire, this really great graphics guy. I could afford to put out a CD with an 8-page booklet so I can include my stories and the photographs instead of just trying to get it done as inexpensively as possible so I can turn a profit on it, right? So it's really been wonderful. The response has been great, and the main thing it's done, it has helped make this project much more better looking and better sounding, and enabled me to get it out. So the campaign ends the 30th. So by the time this goes out, the perks as far as involving getting your name on the record and stuff will be done. But I'm going out and doing a solo bass tour. Starts in St. Paul on February 27th, ends in Toronto on March 28th, and still at the Indiegogo campaign, Stu Hamm, you can buy like VIP packages to the show where you and a friend. There's only like 2 of these per show. You and a friend get 2 tickets to a show. You get to come to sound check, do a little Q&A, get a free CD, free pick at the end of the night. And then for every show, again, I've got they're called perks, a perk where you can sign up and be my tech production manager. You help me load in, have dinner with me, help me sell merch, see what the whole thing's like. It's really creative ways to get people involved, to give them something back, right? A lot of people sign up for Skype lessons, had me, I've reduced the prices of what I charge to play on people's records and demos. But the important thing it's done is it's helped. This is a real personal record for me, about, this diary I found and the experiences that I've gone through the last couple of years. And the music is just beautiful, and I played really well. It's subtle, but I'm very, very happy with it. And, it's just weird enough where it could catch on, and I could be on PBS and start doing film scores for Ken Burns and become rich and famous. You never know, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking, that you should probably expand the marketing to another audience beyond your core group, because it sounds like it's going to fit that. If you want, we could talk about that after our call.
Sure. Well, and that's the other thing that the Indiegogo campaign did, was it allowed me to hire a publicist.
That's great,
right?
Man. Yeah.
Otherwise, that's money out of my daughter's college fund, right?
No, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Right? So it's been a wonderful thing. My engineer, who I've done about 4 records with now, James Boblak, who has a studio called Art Spoke Studio up in Berkeley, California, talked me through it. And it was a lot of work, man, putting it together. But it's fun, and you get to meet with people and talk with them, and then a lot of people get out of it, and they're excited to, for different ways. And it's just been great. It's been great not to have to just cut corners and really put this out. The packaging is going to be great. Have to spend a little more money on the mastering and the mixing, and just awesome.
That's great. Where can people find it on Indiegogo, and where can people find information about where you're touring?
Well, obviously, you just go to Indiegogo.com and put in Stu Hamm. Okay. The title of the album, and the tour, and the project is called The Diary of Patrick Xavier. And then, of course, if you go to, backtrack on my Instagram or my Facebook fan page or personal page, or StuHamm.com, StuHamm.net, StuartHamm.com, StuartHamm.net, they all go to the same place. And, the dates are mostly in the Midwest. Again, it goes like St. Paul, Milwaukee, Chicago, and all around sort of the upper Midwest. And so I hope the weather cooperates, because it's just me driving around in a van with my gear.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, though. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I hope it does real well, man.
Yeah.
Question for you. We all pay tuition in our careers, and I was wondering if you'd be kind enough to maybe share 1 or 2 mistakes you might have made in your career early on and what you learned from it. If you made any.
Oh, well, sure. I mean, I guess you need to never seen the no regrets tattoo on my arm, right? Not no regrets, no regrets.
No regrets.
No regrets. No, I mean,
Bill has that on his Lanero. Isn't that on his guitar?
Is it?
I think he has it on his guitar.
I don't know. I mean, someone asked me this question, if I could go back in time and, tell myself something. One of them would have been that I would have, started doing yoga earlier, and just sort of taken more seriously the physical aspects of playing, which is something that I champion and just don't believe they don't teach first thing at any base camp music school about how to warm up, how to physically wear your instrument. You're 19 years old. You think you can pick up an Ampeg 8x10 and carry it up the stairs. You're not thinking about what that's going to atrophy your body, 20 years later.
Sure.
Right? So certainly you know, you can't regret things you do. Certainly stupid shit we do as kids. Certainly if I had taken my health a little seriously earlier, you know, probably would have helped me out. But you can't live your life that way, right? I mean, everything. You're a parent, you know. You can tell. It's like with baby bands. You can tell a young band says, "Hey, man, don't eat McDonald's every day. Don't go out partying every night. You know, you get one hit record. Don't buy an expensive house." But until they crash and burn themselves, they're not going to learn it. That's just the way it is.
Did this ever happen to you? How many kids do you have?
I got one kid.
Did this ever happen to you with your daughter where, you know, someone tells her something that you've been saying for like 10 years and she thinks the guy's wow, you should.
Of course.
It's like I've learned after that happened enough times. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to say pretty much nothing. And when they need me, then I'll be there. But you're right. You can't tell people anything.
I was going to, at one point, she used to play bass and sing, and she just has all the natural, unteachable things that, you know, no one has. And I was going to pay like one of her friends to say, "Hey, you look cool when you play bass," you know. If I tell her, she's going to do the absolute opposite.
Yeah.
You know?
Amazing how that works, isn't it?
Yeah.
How is your playing? You seem to be like very, you know, you mentioned to me I'm a type A, but you seem to be like very driven, obviously, when it relates to your music and your playing. And I am a type A. And I was curious how your music, your playing maybe has changed over the last 5 years in your pursuit of, you know, excellence or higher, you know, broader range and things like that.
I think I'm certainly a better composer. I think I'm a better band leader. You know, I mean, being a good band leader means just hiring great musicians and letting them do what they do best, right? Sort of putting together the right ducks in a row and making things happen. Certainly subtler player. You know, like playing with Mohini, who's 21. It's just so funny. She's just so young, full of life, and just chops and playing fast, and it's great. It's awesome. It's awesome. And, you know, it's not mature, but you know, who cares, right? Why should it be? And she's 20, and she's got the world at her feet, and you go, girl, man. You know, it's awesome. But you know, I mean, I'm playing upright a lot more, and it certainly takes me longer to get warmed up. And when I do my 45-minute warm up routine and then play, everything in the world is better, man. I really love when I'm in complete control of my instrument, which is why I can't drink or smoke or do anything before I play. You know, I loved being in total control. And the reverse is there's, you know, when everything is right, sometimes I play pretty well, you know, and sometimes and come up with good ideas, but I've been playing the same stuff for so long that if it's like the right cabinet's not there and I got to play through a tube amp and I can't get that clarity that I need, then number one, I'm going to hurt my shoulder, which always kills me 24/7 anyway by trying to get a sound I can't get. And I'm so used to perfect settings that if I can do it, I'm in control of it and I can play well and enjoy it. If it's a fight to get the sound, because what you hear affects what you play. If it sounds like shit, you're going to play crappy, right?
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. You said you're a more subtle player. As far as, can you be more specific with that?
When I, as sort of a technical innovator, I would say.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel pressure to sort of every record or somewhere come up with sort of something different.
Oh, yeah.
But at this point, I'm trying to make the songs work and the music work. And when I do my solo show, I do this thing where I play and talk at the same time, and it's seamless, and it's supposed to take your mind off how ridiculously hard it is when I'm playing to make it look easy. So that's a work on my performance. But I don't know. I'm not in as much of a rush to play fast, I guess, right? I mean, that's got
to be, you know what? That's probably very liberating that you're not, because you're right. You're the guy that's like been the leading edge guy, and that's got to be like, well, shit, you're always expecting to do that, and you just either can't or don't fucking want to sometimes.
Well, but it's just so different. I mean, we were rehearsing with Mohini, and she does this thing where she does like this country music tap thing. I'm like, she probably doesn't even realize that. Like, I'm the guy that invented that, or got it on tape first, right? That was right. And she's like one generation past that, where she saw someone else do it, saw me do it, right? So it's like
it doesn't register, yeah.
Well, it's cool. I mean, everything I play, I stole from someone. I stole from Chris Squire or Jocko or Jeff Berlin or lots of people. So it's an evolving cycle.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I got to see Chris play. I guess 5 years ago they were down here. Great show. Really, really good to see that. Tell me something about yourself people would either be surprised to hear or might find a little odd.
Oh, there's a lot about me that's odd. Well, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm pretty seriously into comics and collecting artwork. I got a bunch of good Frank Frazetta portfolios and prints, and a couple beautiful Chris Bocciolo originals, one from Doctor Strange and one from Extraordinary X-Men. And that's something fun I love to do every Wednesday. Go down to the comic book store and pull out the new Marvel books, and sort of an ongoing story I've been following for, since I was just a kid, and can speak pretty knowledgeably about many different, Grant Morrison and Brian Michael Bendis, who just left Marvel for DC, and he's going to start his new Superman arc, so I may have to start reading DC stuff. That's just sort of a hobby, fun, mindless thing that I like to do, and I read, pretty much constantly, and I'm a crappy golfer, getting worse for some reason, and that's it, man. That's it.
Do you have a non-musical superpower?
My internal clock is pretty amazing. If I have to get up at 3:30 in the morning and I set the clock for 3:30, I'll wake up at 3:29 and watch the digit go to 3:30.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, my internal clock.
That's very cool. Wow. This is a weird question. Has your life been different than what you'd imagined?
I really hate to get too zen, living in the moment, but I can't. I just don't. You can't go there,
No, that's totally cool, man. Totally cool.
Because I know too many musicians that are bitter about, oh man, I can't believe that guy's rich. He can't even play a G minor 7 flat 5 and doesn't know, doesn't know the names of the strings, and why should he be a billionaire? I can solo over giant steps, and then your brain becomes cluttered and angry, and that becomes your life, right? So
no, it totally messes you up, man. One last question, and I really appreciate your time. What's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years? And has it been deliberate or just random through time?
Oh, no, man. I definitely, through breathing and really sort of meditative yoga, work on conscious relaxation, which is trying to eliminate stress from my life and make your brain realize how fortunate you are and live in the moment and just try to eliminate stress and chill out, man. So be a lot more forgiving of people and try to be a lot more understanding and letting know things that you're not in charge of, right? And that you can't make people act the way you would like them to act, and you can't get mad when they don't, and just try to live a stress-free good life and be a good person and do nice things, do good things. Because in the big picture, every little bit, I think, adds to the goodness of the universe. How deep is that, right?
Hey, man, I really can't thank you enough for your time. I want to just tell people to go to Indiegogo.com and check out Stu Hamm and contribute to his campaign. He's literally one of the top bass players that has ever picked up the instrument, I'd say. And go to StuHamm.com or StuAtHamm.com or .net and check him out on tour. Well, hey, man, I hope you come down to Florida and play down here, because I'd love to come out and check you out.
I'm sure we will. I'm sure we'll get down there.
Listen, man, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. Everybody, go support Stu on Indiegogo.com and go to his website and check him out on tour. And Diary of Patrick Xavier, I wish you a lot of luck with the project. It sounds really cool, and I hope it does great for you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for your time. It's been a pleasure to speak to you.
No, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. Thanks again to Stu Hamm for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. Go to everyonelovesguitar.com. Sign up to get notified of future episodes along with some cool stuff we have going on. Now, be nice, go play your guitar, and most important, have fun. Till next time, everybody, peace and love, and I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.